All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the True Life podcast. We are here with Dr. Anne Marie, a beautiful person that cares about the world, and she's got quite a background. I thought the best way to introduce you, Dr. Anne Marie, would be for you just to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So much to say, but I'll keep it short. Thank you for having me here. Really appreciate it. I love what you're doing, so it is an honor to be here. Yes, I am a doctor. I'm a medical doctor. I graduated from med school, but I currently am practicing as a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I love the power of the mind, and I like helping others understand the power of their mind. I really gravitated to this after being in traditional medicine. I would say that the whole traditional route just was not aligned with who I am and what I went through. And so that's the best basic intro I can give on who I am.
Yeah, I agree. I think that so many of us, we come to the spot in our life, some of us earlier, some of us later, and we realize that maybe the life we're living was a life that is not the life that we want to live. And it seems to me that there's a lot of struggle there for people, and it tends to be the very foundation in which people make that wrong turn. As a clinician and as a doctor, when you see different patients, and do you think that the patients you see are a symptom of the sickness that kind of plagues our society?
They're definitely the result
Mhm.
of what society has placed upon them, right? For sure, because we feel that this is how we should live because nobody else handed us another template in a sense of how to live life because there's no other template. There's no everybody is simply unique, and I think that was the biggest struggle for me is accepting my own authenticity of who I am. Like, what do I feel that is right for me? And even leaving traditional medicine was hugely challenging because I was fighting that. Like, this is what it means to heal someone. This is what it looks like in order to be a healer or to save someone is you have to write a prescription and hand it to them, you know? So it was even that conditioning of how I'm supposed to live that I had to fight against to be like, no, this just doesn't feel right, and I know that. And there's and and that's what I had to listen to say, okay, this is my truth. Like, I thrive when I'm talking about this stuff. It comes too naturally to me to deny it. And no matter how many people would even say, like, oh my God, you wasted your years. How could you go to med school and now you're doing this? Like, I heard it all. And I'm like, no, like this just feels right. And I'm the only one that's living my life. And nobody has handed me anything else that felt better. So this is my template. That makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I have seen, I'm a big believer in patterns, and you
Mm,
can see different patterns in people. And I think that the best way to see patterns in people or the world is to understand the patterns of your lifestyle. And one pattern that I see in people that always want to help people is that they have gone through something traumatic and came out of it. And now they have understood, oh my gosh, I'm so much better now. Like I feel, not that I'm a better person, but I feel so much better about myself. And it's that realization of, it seems to me maybe something for you is there was probably so much pressure on you once you were in med school to finish. The world is on your shoulders. Like, you're going to be a doctor. You've committed to this. Now, what's wrong with you? Going to quit now? Now you're a quitter. And it seems to me that the fact that you found the courage to change after so much, that now you're able to go and help people. Can you maybe flesh out a little bit more about the struggle that took place internally for you to move from med school for such a commitment into what you're doing now?
yeah, absolutely. The pattern was the struggle. So you're 100% on it. I love the pattern, and being able to recognize the pattern is the awareness. Like, if we can recognize that this is a pattern, then we can fix it because we can't fix something that we're not aware of. I was completely unaware of my thoughts, right? Of that critical voice that was in my head telling me, it was always about proving myself that I am worthy, that I am acceptable. And I think even pursuing medicine was the start of that because from my past, I was, in foster care, I was abandoned essentially. I was even a high school dropout. So that whole of need to prove myself that I am good enough was the pursuit of medical school. And even that, I still was trying to prove that I am good enough. No matter how much I went through, it was still like, am I worthy of this? And it was that inner dialogue, which was the pattern that, I was telling myself that I wasn't even aware of, that I had these internal beliefs created from my past that, I wasn't worthy, I wasn't good enough, that, I need to do this to be accepted by society or to
Mm.
be accepted, period. So, throughout med school, I became aware of that inner dialogue very much, and that's when I discovered meditation, because I was like, "Wow, uh, sitting with myself is, like, really uncomfortable." Like, listening to this voice is I have this voice that is just so mean, and it was that pattern that once I became aware, I was like, "Okay, enough is enough. I need to just quiet it," number 1, become aware of it, and then I was like, "Where did this come from?" And then that realization that it came from my experiences and relationships was like the aha moment, like, "Oh, so what people told me became my story, which became my pattern, and now I'm repeating it, in my reality by even withdrawing from situations or even opportunities." I would shy away from things because I felt like I was not good enough. So, talking about patterns, um, I hope I answered that question though.
Oh,
So
you answered it beautifully. Sometimes I think that we are so unaware of the patterns of relationships, and they start at such a young age. You know,
Mhm.
from when you're a child. I recently read an article that talked about mirror neurons, and I was unaware of these. Mirror neurons are these. If my daughter Sky, who's a beautiful young woman, and I'm so proud of her, I can't help but say
Aw.
that. So when you have a child, your child is born with a particular set of mirror neurons. It's much like, you know, I'm going to try not to birdwalk too far, but I try to go on tangents. For everybody listening, Dr. Anne Marie has an unbelievable podcast called Rapid Realization. And in one of her podcasts, she talks about the law of correspondence. And as she gets deep into that podcast, she talks about how people split the atom, and the two parts of the atoms they become in a superposition. So one part moves here and one part moves over there. Okay, so
Yeah,
think about the same thing for mirror neurons. I have neurons in my mind, and my daughter has them in her mind. So she, as the, let's just say it turns to the right or counterclockwise, when she sees it, it's turning the same way. So we're connecting on almost a telepathic level. And she can read my ability. She can read my thoughts. Even with the looks of my face or if I wink at her or I smile, she's picking up certain cues that were meant directly from me to her. And I think it's those, from the smallest level of relationships, we are learning about ourselves and how to act, that is on a genetic level that our parents taught us. And so, bringing it back full circle, I think you answered the question beautiful, because our understanding of ourselves and lives begin at the most earliest relationship. And you have if you would be so kind, as this story is a little personal, but I think it's beautiful and I think it's worth telling. Can you can you maybe cover the story about when you were adopted by your foster parents, and you have a story about some other girls that were your foster sisters. Would you mind sharing that story?
yeah, absolutely. I'm an open book. So, when I've done the work, so I definitely, I have that's what I'm here to do, is share. So, yeah, I mean, well, number 1, that was my realization of, like, wanting to help people. The being in a foster home, you see situations and experiences, or you see other children that go through these experiences, and there was just this type of an awareness that I had at that age, like, that there's other people that have these pasts, and they're I don't wanna say, at that time, I was comparing. I was like, "Wow, I'm so fortunate." There was a sense of gratitude that, yes, I went through my experience. I am in this home with these children, but I'm still very fortunate. And I felt like I had abilities to help those children at that time. That they were younger than me. Their their story behind why they were in the home was surrounding abuse. And, you know, I was not physically abused, I was neglected. And that was my traumas. And so I even internalized that, and I was like, wow, what can I do to help these children? You know, and that was the start of me wanting to pursue helping people. That was the realization that I want to help people. And I became quite good at it, like of just like connecting with people. I hope I answered that question, but and in regards to you know, I became emancipated. So I after leaving the home, I at 16 I was pretty much on my own. I, you know, got my first apartment. And I dropped out of high school, and you know, I had to work. So
Yeah.
I had to work. But I still had that like drive deep down, like I can create my life. I became very aware at an early age that like, okay, I can create my life, and that doesn't need to be who I am. Um, and so I decided to go get my GED and become, you know, go to college, and that I became very profoundly aware that okay, I can manifest what I want to manifest. I can create my reality. Um, I hope I'm kind of circling around on that
It's
circle
perfect. It's perfect.
on the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I almost cut you off there. I apologize.
Uh, so, so you know, I mean, all those experiences were, you know, traumatic if you look at them. Sometimes it's even hard for me to say now that they're traumatic because it's like I don't see them as traumas anymore. You know, they're like my perspective has completely changed. And that's why I love what I do, hypnotherapy, is because, you know, I created these new pathways in my mind to be able to perceive that experience very differently now. So even talking about it, you know, I'm sitting here smiling about it. And, you know, I've talked about about my story to people, and, you know, I've had people cry and they're like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Like, the way that I perceive it is I needed to go through that to be able to clear away my beliefs that I created about myself, you know, to go on this journey. You know, because, you know, during that time, and even still today, like I'm human, you know, I have beliefs that are pressed upon me, but I'm very aware about them now. You know, then I wasn't aware of them. So, to help. So,
Yeah.
oh,
I think like that particular statement just makes me find you so beautiful. Like
oh,
it
thank you.
shows me where you're at. And I think a lot of people, myself included, if I could give people one gift, I would tell them that like the worst trauma you go through is the best gift you can ever have. And it's
Hmm.
so hard, it's so difficult to understand why. People are like, you know, like my wife and I had our first son die, and it was so tragic and it was so heartbreaking. However, our child taught us more in a day than I've learned in my lifetime. But it takes so long to get there, whether you're abused, molested, you've had somebody close to you die. Like, what people don't understand is that trauma is a gift from the planet. That trauma is a gift from God, from Buddha, from all. It's the greatest gift you'll ever receive. And the reason is because something, whatever you believe in as a power, if it's Gaia, the world, or God, that power believes you. It's chose you. It says you are strong enough to handle this. And I chose this to happen to you. And I'm sorry. It's going to be horrible and you're going to hate it, but you're strong enough to get through it. And when you get through it, I want you to come out the other side and teach people how to get through it. And if you can
Yeah.
begin thinking about that, like it makes you cry. You go from tears of sadness to tears of joy. And that
Yeah.
space that was ripped from your heart, that person, that idea, whatever was ripped from you, there's a cavernous hole there. But soon, if you believe and you understand, you begin to see something grow there that's bigger and stronger. And it grows within you and takes over you. And it starts coming out. And it's just this amount of love. And you start looking back at the Bible where Abraham was told to sacrifice his son. And you start looking at the Aztecs who maybe metaphorically, you know, lost people or sacrificed people. I believe it's this sacrifice. There can be no salvation without sacrifice. And we all need salvation. And it comes from sacrifice. And you don't literally have to sacrifice people you love, but you do have to sacrifice your old life. You must die to your old life to become the potential. And that's the whole idea of Christianity being born again, and it comes through trauma. And so when
Yeah.
you told that story about the trauma that you had, it's like you told the story of your rebirth. And look at you now. Now you're going out and you're helping people and you're spreading this message. And I believe people can see it. And so it's kind of a great segue into inner dialogue. Now, doing what you do, helping people, are there some techniques that you use to help people? It doesn't have to be inner dialogue, but I've heard you say that before. And so I was just curious if you could speak upon that and maybe some techniques that you use that you see are common in people that they think they could benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, you sharing is it's amazing. You made me think of a lot of things I would love to bring to the
Of
table in
course,
regards to
please,
that.
please.
I wrote a note because I'm like, I really want to talk about inner dialogue, but I do want to pick up on something you said in regards
Okay.
to what you experienced and us coming into this life and having these traumas. And for me, I believe we 100% have chose it, and that's really hard for people to hear, is that they chose this experience. And it's because we do have a life between lives, and we do have the spirit essence of us, this energy essence. That's why, even quantum physics, our science cannot prove things because there
Yeah.
is this energy force in the background. It's like this atom being split, and then doing something to it, it moves, and then this other part of the atom, which is like 4 miles away, does the same exact thing. That there's this energy, and we are part of this energy too, that is not here in this physical experience. So we have our soul's purpose, and we chose to come into the life to have experience. And the death of a child is one of the most, honestly, I would say, is one of the biggest lessons. And I have to say, wow. Because that is something that, from my school of thought, that child even chose to give you that lesson. That child came here and was like, I want to give you this lesson. And I believe that's all of relationships, right? That we always
Yeah.
meet people and we have a lesson to learn from them, from experience. Even if it's a failed marriage or a lost partner or whatever it is, there is a contract, basically, that is an agreement for us to come together to have this lesson that we're going to learn in this life experience. So that's definitely something I love talking about. So I had to throw that out
Yeah. Thank
too.
you. Thank you.
But in regards to inner dialogue, um, inner dialogue is, I mean, oh, there's so much inner dialogue, right? We all have awareness of that. And that is one of the biggest inner dialogues that most people are aware of, is that critical mind, the critical mind that's talking to us. And how I like to explain is we have many parts that make up who we are, to be able to simplify it. We have so many egos that were developed from our upbringing. And those parts can come through in that inner dialogue, right? And we also have these amazing, beautiful, wise aspects that come through, like higher self, that can come through in an inner dialogue. And of course, the inner dialogue that is not the one that most people want to get rid of is the negative inner dialogue, right? And so the negative self talk. And so, in regards to techniques on how to help with any dialogue that is negative, that isn't serving us, is, I would say, encourage the positive dialogue, switch and become aware of the higher self dialogue, maybe, or the wise aspects that is saying this is not your truth. And that's a bit challenging for people when they're first getting into this, like, healing space of, like, even just, number one, you have to become aware of this dialogue. And I just did a talk the other day that someone's like, oh, I get really frustrated when I try to calm myself down. And I'm like, well, it's basically like two parts. You have this part that is really sad, and then you have a part that is really frustrated, and the frustrated part is trying to help the sad part. That doesn't that doesn't that doesn't really help. It's like blind leading the blind, right? We need to create resources for ourselves and create a positive voice in our mind. Sometimes I serve as that positive voice. I'm sure you serve as that positive voice. And sometimes my clients will be like, you're like that good angel on my shoulder talking to me. I'm like, no, 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 change the voice. That's you. That is you. I'm just kind of like handing you some tools that someone handed me. You know,
Yeah.
I am no different. I am nobody special. I'm a human. You know, we are all special. We all have a part in this world, and so we all have the ability to learn these resources and help ourselves. So that's for inner dialogue. I would say, you know, become aware of it is number one. If you're not sitting in silence and just becoming aware that you even have these voices, and start to, you know, create a positive voice, a more positive voice that is going to help you through this if you're not working with someone to help you with your inner dialogue. And so yeah, that's the tip on inner dialogue.
Dr. Henry, I hope you should start a school for children where you talk about inner dialogue, like even like a set of podcasts. I think that should be an integral part of a childhood education. Like that's as important as English, as math, right? Like
Yeah.
imagine how many people we could save from drudgery if in, K through 5 they had 15 minutes of inner dialogue class. It'd be
Yeah,
amazing,
no,
right?
I 100% agree with you. I mean, that's why I'm so in love with the podcast realm now. You know, I mean, I've loved listening to podcasts and learning, you know, from other people, and the ability for this to reach out to people across the world, you know, that don't have the educational resources is kind of like, I think this is us stepping into that realm of helping to just share something that is, you know, everybody does is deserving of receiving, you know, education, knowledge. You know, I love that we are in this time that allows us to have these platforms and technology, but there's some places that are still struggling to receive that, right? But yeah, I believe that, you know, now children are getting access to this stuff because they can freely search for it too. I believe that we're moving in that direction. That's my optimism.
No, I think it's true. And I think not only is it your optimism, but it's your foresight. If we take an honest look at what's happening in the world, the old world is dying all around us. And there's a lot of people in positions of authority that maybe had gotten there because they took the older path, which is it took a lot of money to go to college. It took some student loans. And a lot of people say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And there's a lot of people that have filled these positions. And now, because the internet has been like a grand equalizer, there is people that used to be truck drivers that dropped out of med school that are now being able to pursue a passion and want to help people. And they're being able to shine through and to reach people instead of maybe someone that was, much like you had chosen the path of med school. Some people may have chosen a path a long time ago and never decided to leave, but now they feel stuck. And so I think what we're
Mhm.
seeing is a great leveling of the playing field. And even though there's so much trauma with the pandemic and the world around us, I believe a new world is being born. And may I share a story with you about what I think is going on?
Oh, please do.
Okay. This is the way that I think is a really good way to look at what's happening. So imagine we live in this beautiful community, and there's a giant tree in this community, and it's just the surrounding is as beautiful as you can think. This tree it's 100 feet tall, and it's just provides shade, and it's a beautiful canopy. And all of us, we gain our life force from this tree, this sustenance, our feeling of well-being. We gain our daily bread from this tree. And once every 100 years, a flower blooms. So depending on when you're born, we have a similar life. Most people live for 80 years. So depending on when you're born, maybe you're born when the flower is just beginning to bloom and the fragrance is beautiful and it just invigorates you and everybody worships the flower on this tree. But then 70 years go by and this flower begins to wilt and its edges get brown. And maybe you're born when the flower falls. And imagine if you were born when the flower was blooming. Imagine all your memories, all your love, everything is tied to this flower, and that flower falls off the tree. Everybody panics. Oh no, we're all going to die. We're not going to have our daily bread. This is it. This is horrible. And people lose their mind. And people are crying, and your parents and your grandparents are like, it's dead. We're all going to die. But then somebody notices a new bud. A new flower starts to form. And it's going to be bigger and better and greater and smell more insane and better for everybody when this new flower buds. And some people see the flower budding, but other people are too caught up and they worship the flower on the ground. But there's this new one being born. And I think that that's where we are as a society. There's a new flower blooming. It's going to be bigger. It's going to smell better. It's going to be better for everybody. But it doesn't mean we can't discount the beauty of the last flower, because a lot of people have their life tied to that last flower. And that's what I mean when I say the old world is dying. But there's a new one being born. And I think it's incumbent upon people like us to spread the word of the new flower. That almost sounds like a cult. Spread the word of the new flower, but
I know.
I've been
I
working
love
on
the
that.
metaphor. No, I love that metaphor. It's a
Thank
beautiful
you.
metaphor. And
Thank you.
it's a hard one for some to even swallow.
Right.
To it that there is a cycle. There is a cycle, and right now, like even with this pandemic, it is a cycle. And we are heading into a new cycle. Absolutely, 100% agree with you on that metaphor.
Mhm.
And it's all about perspective too, and how you want to see that if it's something that's going to be beautiful or something that's not going to be beautiful, and it's like, okay, I want to see the beauty in the flower, is it dying or living? No matter how I see it, because in the end, even though I don't want to use that word, there is no end. It's just it's a constant growing. It just like that flower falling will now nourish the roots.
Yep.
It is a constant cycle and pattern of rebirth and growth. It's an expansion of life, and that's what we're doing. We're expanding and we're creating different realities or perspectives and experiences, and it depends on you know um, how you want to live and how you choose. Do you want to be on this perspective where it's all bad and evil, or do you want to be on this perspective where there is no evil? It's just life. It just is. It's just here.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think it's amazing how, and I think it was in your podcast, Correspondence, when you talked about um, how people see things in other people, and they can choose to see the negative or they can choose to see the positive, but either way, they're seeing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the law of correspondence, it really centers around like the mirror, that everything is your mirror. And, what is law of correspondence is that what is within is without, it is on the outside as well. And that, what is so is above is below. And that is like, and another way of saying this is like the hologram. Everything is holographically being replicated because we are coming from one source. We are coming from one. And so your reality and experience is a reflection of you. And that's really hard for people to swallow when, their experience is not fun. It's not good. But there's a huge space of growth within that to be able to see that. It's kind of like what I like to say is like, you when you change your perspective of how you see your world, your physical reality will slowly shift. And if we have negative reactions to something, we have to check, like, you know, an example I've given is like, someone cutting us off, and I live in Florida, so the traffic here is not bad, not the greatest in South Florida. And it's like someone cutting you off and you immediately being like, oh, you beep, 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 and like cursing at them and just like flicking your finger and getting really mad. But at that moment, have you not ever cut someone off too? Like haven't you not ever like been in a rush, been in a hurry, not be aware of other people or courteous of other people? And I'm going to guarantee you the answer is yes. And if you're going to say no, then we're rejecting a part of us, and that's the shadow part. We're rejecting a part of us. So if we can see all the experience around us is kind of projecting something back to us. So my reaction of anger is projecting back to me that I have anger in me. Like it's not what they did that made me angry. I created that, in a sense, reaction. It's the button, and there's a trigger there. So what do we want to do? We want to eliminate that. So in order to eliminate our maybe negative sides or reactions, we have to then react differently. So then it doesn't matter what happens in the environment, I will respond in a more harmonious way. And therefore, then the reality will slowly shift to a new vibration of harmony, and people won't cut you off as much. And if they do, you won't be bothered.
Yeah.
So the law of correspondence is just looking at life, and there's many ways. Like, I'm big about talking about trying to like bring different things together, because there's so many ways of healing and helping ourselves. So like the law of correspondence can be like the shadow work. People have known as shadow work. So this is like shadow work. Like, you're looking at the dark side, because in everything there is a duality, there is a polarity, there is positive and negative. We cannot have existence right now if we did not have that dark side, that bad side. That is law of correspondence. It is the positive and the negative, the up and the down. And if that was not in existence, we would not have life. We would not be here, because we all came from one. And so when you become aware of that, all healing modalities is just trying to get us back to that one, that singularity of existence, that remembrance of who we are, our essence.
Yeah.
Silence.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't say it any better. And you know, the pattern is everywhere. Like, if you listen to music, you hear these different sounds, but what makes the music happen is the silence in between the sounds, right? That makes the pattern. If you look at canyons and valleys, like, everything is a pattern, and it's all a process. And I think that is one part that's going to be a big part of our future, and that is us seeing ourselves as a pattern instead of as an individual. And I
Mhm.
really think that there is this new understanding happening. Like, kids today are smarter than, maybe that's not the right word. Kids today live in a different world than we grew up in or our parents grew up in. And thus they are subject to different stimuli. And, if we can agree that we are part of nature, and we can agree that we can learn from nature, that we could possibly also agree that the history of nature is our history, and we can see things changing. We can see how it's going to go. We can at least have confidence that there's a process. And so that process, I think, is going to evolve from the religions that we know as individuals to a religion of something like, we're a process. I don't have it fully fleshed out yet, but this idea of us as a process, it helps people to understand that it's an ongoing process. It helps people to understand that the things you see in other people is a process you see in yourself. And I just think I think it helps people understand who they are when they look at themselves as a process. And here's a great way to look at it. I think I've got it here. Have you ever heard about the ship of Theseus?
No.
Okay, so this is a mental exercise that we can do. Imagine a giant ship, and it's all made of wood, right? It's got the wood mast. It's got, everything is made of wood, and it's a giant ship. And in the cabin underneath the deck, we have enough oak wine barrels to replace every part of the ship. And as we're on our journey, the ship begins to rot. So the sail goes bad. So we throw away the sail, and we go downstairs, and we take one of these pieces of oak, and we build a new sail. And as we keep going, the ship deteriorates, and we keep replacing the old wood with the new wood from the barrels. By the time we reach our destination, we have completely got rid of the old ship, and now it's made out of the new barrels that we used. Is that the same ship that we set sail in? What do you think?
Yeah, I love your metaphors, man. I love 'em. And actually, the ship is us. The ship is, yeah, I mean, okay, well, let's talk science. Every
Nice.
cell in our body changes, and every 7 years, they say 7 to 10 years, you are a completely different human, because every cell in your body is changing. Even the lenses on your eye are not the same lenses that you've seen life through just 2 3 years ago, because they are replicating and changing. Your lenses on your eyes are dying off and being changed to new ones. It's like the hair on my head, is going to, you know if I cut it shorter, then then my hair will be completely new just in a short, 4 months. And that is us. We are constantly changing. we are constantly replicating and evolving and expanding, and and energy is not created or destroyed. So it's not something to look at as if it's like, oh, it's gone, and a sad thing. It's not. It's just part of the process that the part of the process of allowing that change to take place and to go into that, to allow us to follow that vibration or harmony. Like I love like sacred geometry. I think
Yeah,
you've heard of it, like where it's like
sure.
everything has a perfect pattern, and that is the music. It is the vibration, the up and the down, this pattern of existence, and the your ship metaphor is exactly us. we are
Yeah, it is.
we are evolving and changing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one that's very similar that I think it just we should just pound it home. So imagine a whirlpool. Have you ever seen a whirlpool before? Right?
Of
So a
course. Yeah, yeah,
whirlpool is
yeah.
just this swirling mass, right? And there used to be one by a creek by my house. It was always there. It was always there. And if you see a whirlpool, it's normally always there. But the water inside the whirlpool is different. Right? The water comes into the whirlpool and then it goes out. But the whirlpool, the form is there. And I think that the reason we're pounding this so hard, be it science, be it Theseus's ship or a waterfall, is that people have a difficult time of letting go of their past. And if they can understand that they're the form, and hey, that happened to them, but you can't change that. And that was necessary. So, I once heard that the depression is being trapped in the past and anxiety is being trapped in the future. And that's if you just live
Mhm.
now. Like hey, right now you're the form of the whirlpool. Yeah, that water that came before us, dirty water, but it's gone. You can't change that. So don't hold on to it because you can't hold that water anyway. It's already gone. And so many of us get caught up in like, oh my gosh, this big stick came through my waterfall. Oh no, or it came through my whirlpool. Yep, it needed to happen. It had to change something. Don't worry, you'll figure out why later. But I think that so many people I see that are struggling, it's because they're holding on to something that's not their burden to carry. And they need someone like you to sit down with them and just say, hey, just let that go, and
Yeah, let that go. Yeah.
I really think you're an educator in so many ways. And since we're on the topic of education, what can you maybe, if you were to form a school, or if you were to, what are some things you think could help children right now going forward with this whole distance learning and what?
Mhm.
I'll just the shotgun out the back door, throwing all the stuff out there. I know there's a lot of things, but with learning today, kids wearing masks, like what do you think are some of the issues that our children are going to have in the future?
I mean, oh boy, children are living more in that meditative, hypnotic, trance. They're so wide open. They're fully in their subconscious mind. They're creating the inner dialogue at that moment. So they're like little sponges, right? Picking everything up. And so they're definitely feeling a lot and experiencing a lot, and the uncertainty of change, and feeling even with their parents or their caregivers around them. So I mean, if I could change anything right now, I would say we got to change. we the man, I talked to a teacher, and it's just not easy, like the parameters, and they're dealing with stress, but the children feel that, right? And so I'm huge on silence, like learning how to just be silent, to be aware, to gain awareness of our emotions. Children learn how to block, right, their emotions, because nobody's guiding them on how to listen to their emotions. They don't understand emotions, so let's just simply teach them about emotions, and tell them, hey, this is completely normal. My I have a nephew, my youngest nephew, who is 10 now. And this was when he was like 6 years old, though. And we were at a beach, and he was crying, and just not in a good mood. I don't even remember exactly why. And I was like, don't worry, it will pass, it will pass. These emotions, don't worry. He's like, no, I'm gonna be like this forever. Because when you're in that feeling, you believe that it's like permanent. It feels like such permanency. And sure enough, it didn't last forever. We got on a kayak, and we were out on the boat, we were out on the water. He was having a great time, he's laughing and giggling. And in that moment, he was so present, he was so in that moment, because children are in the moment, they are more in the moment. But I wanted to kind of bring him back to the past just to be able to realize the transition and that there is change and that things do change and that emotions are not permanent, so that he becomes aware of that, so that the next time it comes, he would realize that these are more emotions, they're normal, they're going to pass. And so I said to him, hey, remember like 10, 15 minutes ago, you were crying? You don't feel sad anymore, right? And I just wanted to gain awareness. No, I'm having a great time. I'm like, I know, you see, emotions are normal. They go up, they go down, but we don't need to react. They're not permanent. Even emotions are not permanent. And allow that flow of life to come forward, that change of emotions to come forward. So that's the one thing that I definitely would, encourage us to lead, our children in understanding us. We are the authority figures that they're looking up at and learning how to behave in life. And they're picking it up. So like whenever I have someone call me and they're like, hey, can you see my kid? Da, 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 da. Or, I if I'm seeing the parent, I'm like, hey, just work on yourself really more, a lot more. Like I'm happy to
Yeah.
see them, but you're the one that's going to have the biggest influence. And so the more you are, because they're feeling you, so the more you're aware and allowing your emotions and educating them and influencing them, the better they're going to be. Our teachers, our parents, our policemen, our doctors. Oh man, like even doctors, I'm like, sit down and meditate. I don't know. Be
Yeah.
aware of your emotions because they're not even aware of their emotions, and so long answer, but that's something I definitely would help, just becoming aware, awareness.
Yeah. It's interesting. And it there's something I've been wanting to ask you. So on the idea of hypnosis, I once heard that in order to get someone in a state of hypnosis, it helps to have them focus on one of their senses. Is that true?
It depends on the mind. But yes, absolutely. It's meditation. Hypnosis is like meditation. And the only thing different is that, I like to say hypnosis is like meditation on steroids. We're getting you into a very, very deep place. And the brain waves at that state of hypnosis is called theta. And the theta brain waves are the same exact brain waves that we have when we're in REM sleep, which is rejuvenating, and also in children before the age of 12. You're just in a very open learning state for you to take in suggestions. So that's all hypnosis is. It's not me controlling you, it's all you just being very open. And so, if focusing on one thing helps the thinking mind to calm down, because we have two minds, we have the conscious mind, which is the thinking mind, and then we have the subconscious mind, which is the feeling body. It's the emotions, it's the intuition that comes through. And so, the focusing aspect of hypnosis on maybe one thing is maybe to help kind of quiet that inner dialogue that may be distracting you away from connecting with that subconscious mind, which is the emotion. We're not trained to. I would say, in the last 10 years, it's been huge shifts in this whole self healing world, or self discovery, and bringing like Eastern philosophy to the Western society. And there's huge shifts, and we're very much like left brain did, very analytical, linear. And now we're kind of shifting more to that more esoteric and feeling. And that is right brained, the
Mm.
creativity. And so we're shifting more to that way. And that, like, hypnosis just connects you with that part of the brain. Basically, it connects you more with this bigger part of who we are. The thinking mind is only 10% of who we are. We're our thoughts. That's you you're 90%, these feelings, these emotions, these intuitions. It's more of who you are. These neurons all through your body are communicating. We think that the voice is the only communication. There's a lot more communication going on in our body. We just have to learn how to listen to it. And so hypnosis is kind of that process of helping people listen to this part of the mind, the subconscious mind.
Yeah, that's it's there's so much there. And in a way, you know, it seems to me that I'm trying to tie it together with education in that, like, we think about hypnosis and, I believe some people can use there's multiple techniques. You could use the cadence of your voice to go and do what you think is possible to get people, you can there's certain techniques you can use. And I think I've read some areas that are like TV is so powerful. Like, talk about taking a medium and not even having to think about it. Like, I'm going to put an image in your head. There it is. Think about that. I don't want you to think about it.
Yeah.
Marshall McLuhan, who's one of my favorite philosophers, he gets into this and he says that there's hot and cold mediums. A hot medium is something that does the thinking for you, like television. Like, that's why when people watch TV, they just veg out and it gets right in their head. If you read a book, you are responsible for coming up with that mental image. It forces you to think. When you listen to radio, you are supposed to come up with the image. And because TV is such a powerful medium, social media, television, TikTok, YouTube, you name it, all these visual mediums are being thrust upon us today. And when we take these visual mediums with social media and we begin covering people's faces with masks, I think that it can, I'm not saying it always does, but it can put kids at a disadvantage because there's so much that happens here. When I see you smile, when I would see my wife shoot me a sly smile, I'm like, oh my God, I think she likes me, you know? And so much flirting and so much stuff happens right here. And like the eyes match the mouth. And it's so difficult to detect sarcasm and cynicism and playfulness when we can't see here. And that it bothers me to think, and I'm not blaming anybody for it, but it bothers me to think that our children, or because they're all our children, right? Our children are being subjected or neglected maybe and not being able to learn this, especially like if your child is between the ages of 1 and 5 and they have to wear a mask all day, we're denying them the ability to communicate. And like that worries me for the future. It worries me for the divide. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I kind of got into this conversation the other day regarding the mask, and some people are liking the mask because it's hiding a part of themselves that they're self-conscious about, right? So there's like also there's some people that like it and some people that don't. So it's also becoming a projection of some of people's insecurities about themselves. But in regards to children, I mean, my opinion about this, I believe we're definitely going through a shift. And, for children, I, 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 I would like, we're doing it more for people to feel comfortable, right? You know, I would hope that we start to be more open to allow us to choose what makes us comfortable or not. And if you're not comfortable with me not wearing my mask, then okay, you can, go away. It is, I do believe in our choices, allowing us to have choice. Um, and, when it comes to children, they don't really have much choice, right? They don't have much choice what they can or cannot do. So I would say like we just have to educate them and make sure they understand, that we are primarily wearing the mask. We may feel safe and comfortable, but maybe someone else doesn't feel safe and comfortable. And, so I guess that's kind of where I'm at in regards to that. I don't have my own children that are little, so I don't, my perspective may be a bit differently in regards to if I did have a child there and, they're not understanding though. They're not fully understanding the why. They're just kind of going through it, in my opinion. But we have to have them not be shamed, because that's another thing that you're seeing is people are shaming each other for doing something or not doing something, even the vaccinations. And people are being shamed and it's making them feel evil or bad. And we're segregating and we're separating. And that is what I'm not all for. I'm not for the separation. I'm more for unity and acceptance and just openness, because we're all part of each other. And so if we say, again, it's the evil, the good and the evil, the up and the down. It goes back to the law of correspondence, the bad, the good, there is none. It's all the same. You need to have one without the other. So if, we can't segregate ourselves even from the choice that we make regarding vaccinations or wearing a mask. So I guess that's where I am authentically with that. Like I believe there needs to be a choice and there needs to be some acceptance. And if that isn't an uncomfortable acceptance for you, then you have to see what is controllable for you, controlling the controllables, controlling what you can control. You can choose how you react. You can choose where you stand and you can move. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
It's a great answer. It's a really good answer. And you know, I think there's something to be said about, I think there's a lot of things to be said about culture, but I recently took a class on cultures of the world. And I am trying not to be, but I have been the ugly American so much it's ridiculous, you know? And it's because we don't understand the world in which other people were raised. When I moved to Hawaii, this is going to sound so ignorant, but we're all about sharing, right? So when I first
Exactly.
moved, yeah, I grew up in Southern California, and it was not there wasn't a whole lot of diversity. You know, there was a lot of white people and you know, Mexican people and some Asian people and there was a melting pot, but it was mostly white people. So when I moved to Hawaii, there is so many different Asian cultures. You know, there's Hawaiian cultures and Samoan cultures. And what's ignorant for me is like I could not, it's gonna sound so horrible, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
And
I
the
could
fact
not
that
tell the
you're worried
difference.
about it just shows how much you care. So
Okay, good, thank you. I I I couldn't. One time, my boss says I delivered a package, and he goes, "Who did you deliver that package to?" I'm like, "Oh, it was an Asian guy." And he goes, "Was he Japanese or Filipino?" And I went, "I don't know. I can't tell the difference." And he was so offended.
oh.
Oh my God. What are you? You know, like I could just see the look of disgust on his face. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so dumb. I'm so, you know, but ultimately what happened later, there's another white guy that works in my building and he asked me, hey, are you guys related? And I said, it's not just me. It's not just me. It's you. It's all of us, you know?
I mean,
And so
you don't know what you don't know.
you don't know what you don't know. And it lit a fire under me to understand more about it. And as I began learning about different cultures, I learned that it wasn't just my ignorance from not from where I was born, but you know, different cultures speak different languages. And some people have a tonal language. My wife is Laotian and her native language is Lao. And so it's a tonal language. And so it's almost a song. So I could say the same word and accent a different part of that word, and it means something totally different. So the inflection in my voice means different things to different cultures. As Americans, we tend to be louder, we tend to be direct, we have a lot of eye contact. And if you speak to somebody in an Asian culture, these can be offensive. They're not that they are, but they can be. And the
Yep.
person could be like, "Why are you yelling at me?" "Oh, I'm not. I'm just
Yeah.
talking how I am." But to them, it's a different culture. There's a different respect. You know, personal space. That's something depending on how dense your population is. You know, you might be this close to somebody, and that might be normal. But for us, it's like we're going to be in a fight in a minute. You know, and
Yeah.
so right, like, hey, get out of my space. What
Yeah.
are you doing? And the guy's like, "Well, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to buy what? Well, you don't like me being right here?" Like, no, I don't. Get out of here. You know,
Yeah.
but that also comes down to cultural norms. Those are cultural norms. So some people think that the most respectful thing you can do is wear a mask. Hey, you're sick, put a mask on. How dare you? How dare you breathe that? And so
Yeah.
I think part of the problem in our conversation that we're not talking about is the way different cultures think about things. And that seems to be taboo because it tends to be divisive. Because once we
Yeah.
say we shouldn't do this, now we have to talk about why this culture is better than that culture. You know,
Yes.
maybe, you know, and people, which gets me to the question I want to ask you. What is the difference between diversity and inequality? What do you think is the difference there?
Diversity and inequality. For me, they're not the same. You know, it's perspective. For me, diversity is uniqueness. It's, you know, words are very powerful. So I'm checking in with how I interpret this word. So someone may interpret it differently, but for me, diversity is uniqueness. And when you get to a place of seeing things from an energetic aspect, uh, there is no diversity. We are all just unique, and that we all are very different energetically, but we're all connected to this one thing. But inequality is the rejection of that diversity for me. So inequality is that rejection of diversity. That's how I would perceive it. Is that my perspective is, you know, I obviously like I come from a very diverse family, a very unique family that is very multicultural. Like, my mother's part Japanese, my father's Bulgarian. He speaks very loud. It sounds like he's always mad. And, my mother doesn't, the whole looking in the eyes, I get it. There's a submissive, like looking down. You don't look at people in the eyes. It's seen as a territorial type of thing. And, and in my family, like we're very mixed, and even my partner is Jamaican, so I'm from a very diverse, and there's, inequality. It's real, like there is, and it's it does heavy on my heart to see that, because people cannot have this beautiful perspective of uniqueness, that we're all just part of the same thing, but we just have our unique expression, and our human form is a unique expression, no matter what color it is, no matter what culture it comes from, no matter how we dress. It is a unique perspective, and that's the diversity, which is everybody. People can look at me and be like, you're a complete hippie. You're very diverse, especially if you were in the middle of let's say I was in the middle of Harlem. Trust me, I'm very diverse there. I'm very unique there. It's all about perspective. So inequality, oh yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's a social conditioning, right? The inequality is a social conditioning. We want to be accepted. We want to be in groups. That's how we feel accepted. There's inequality in religion. There's inequality in schools. There's inequality in gender. There's inequality in everything. And that is the lack of acceptance of something. And that's very unfortunate. It is the reality. And, I would hope that the more people start to see that we're all very connected in the same way, energetically. We are all the same atoms. We're all made up of the same atom. We all have the same blood, same vessels, same heart. Our foundations are all the same, and then there would not be any inequality. We are all unique in this flow of life.
That is such a great answer. I'm so glad you answered that question. I've posed that question to a lot of different people, and you're the first person to answer it that way. It's beautiful, and I
Thank you.
enjoy it. Thank you for doing it. Yeah, I think I wish people could understand that we're all unequal. There's things that you don't have, and other people, there's always gonna be people better than you. There's always gonna be people worse than you. But once you begin even going down that road, you've taken the wrong path. It's how can I what can I do to make my life better, I think. But it's so hard.
It is. And I'm still there, every even within my business, I'm there's this like comparison, and it's a surrendering. There's this like surrendering of just needing to let go and just be who I am, and not, and see my uniqueness of who I am, and not feel unimportant or more important. I just am, and that's one of my biggest like epiphanies in life, is that I am not more than or less than. I am them. I am equal to, I am the same. And that's the inequality that maybe we're unable to recognize, that creates the inequality of unable to see that we are all just perfect how we are in our existence right here, and that doesn't make me less than or greater than. It just makes me me. No matter what you're doing, and it doesn't need to come through, but there's so many social conditionings, right? So many social conditionings, like you said, social media, everything around us is telling us that there is this specific way of doing things, even the specific way I need to look. With social media, it's huge of being like, okay, this is what a relationship needs to look like. Even a relationship. This is what being a father needs to look like. This is what being a mother needs to look like. This is what being a sister needs to look like. This is what being a hypnotherapist needs to look like. This is what this needs to be looks like. There's so many conditionings around us all the time. I have we have these commercials down here for a chain of a grocery store chain, and they're always their commercials is always the family sitting around the dinner table and eating, and that commercial alone is just telling us. My client always is like, the commercials condition me on exactly how my family needs to look like, and I'm like, yeah, that's not reality, right? we're not, especially during holidays, we are kind of bickering, getting annoyed, fighting with each other. Family is however you want to define it needs to look like. There's no one way. There's no perfection. There's no such thing as perfect, because nothing is replicable. Nothing. You have two twins. Has anybody ever met two twins that are exactly the same? I don't think so. Like, their personalities are so different. Yeah, maybe they may look similar and they have the perfect genetics, but they're very different because they cannot have the same perception, the same experience. They cannot be in space and time at the same exact time, or whatever matter in the spatial aspect. But so that means their perception is going to be different. So they're unique, and that's why their personality will be unique. And so there's nothing. Perfection means replicable, that there is an actual definition that something is perfect. There's no such thing. Not even my phone, my desk, nothing in physical reality is perfect, because even the cells that make up it, I guarantee you there's cells within it that have broken off, fallen off, or changed. There's nothing that's changing, because everything's moving too, right? Every cell, every atom in life is constantly moving and shifting. So that means it cannot be exactly the same. So there's no such thing as perfection. So when you realize that, then you'll realize that even society is not telling me the perfect way of living, because there's no such thing as perfect, because nothing is replicable. There's no such thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. It reminds me of, like, I believe that we can learn so much just by watching nature and the patterns of nature. And
agreed.
right? Yeah, like
Love it.
so think about the way like in a neutron, or in a, I'm going to butcher this probably, but in the smallest molecules, you have like neurons, or atoms spinning around neurons, the same way that the planets rotate on their axis, the same way that the planets rotate around the sun, the same way that our solar system spins around the galaxy, and the same way that the galaxy spins around the universe, right? But it doesn't really spin, it corkscrews. And that's why they say history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So you can look back to the past to find answers to the future. And I got a shameless plug right here. In this brilliant new book by George Monti, it's called The Terror Before the Sacred. It kind of looks like this right here.
I saw it. I did see it. I saw it on there on Amazon.
I'm so stoked.
Good
and
for
so
you.
Thank you. I give this metaphor in my book, and it's about living in a snail shell. So imagine taking a nautilus shell or a snail shell, and you cut a cross section, and now you're looking into the snail shell, right? And it looks like a spiral. I don't know if you can see this. And if you were to cut a snail shell in half, you would see a series of repeating, repetitive patterns getting bigger and bigger and bigger, like this chambers, different chambers, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, when a snail is born, it's born with the first chapter, the first little piece of that snail shell. And as it grows and eats its calcium-rich diet, it grows another chamber, and it repeats on top of it. And that is a lot like our daily routine. The chances are your routine may be different than mine, but you have one. For me, I wake up at 5. I come downstairs. I make breakfast for my wife and my daughter, take my daughter to school, go to work my 12 hours, come back home, kiss my wife, take a shower, go to bed, wake up in the morning. And I do it again and again, day after day, month after month, year after year. And it's the same series of repeating patterns as the snail shell grows. So this is a pattern in nature. It's the same pattern you see with the way that water flows. Like water flow takes the path of least resistance, whether it's a teardrop or runoff from a storm drain. And so if we can see that there's these patterns that happen on the macro, we can learn how those patterns are, and we can apply them to our life. Like if I want to change, I should be studying the way in which water flows down from a glacier. Then I can see, oh, I see the water pools right here. And if you could personify water and you were that water drop, you go, oh no, I'm stuck. I'm never going to come over this edge. But you need to be reinforced from the source. And you can tell by looking at the patterns on the jagged rock that it is going to overflow. It just needs to be reinforced, reinvigorated from the source. It needs that depth, that torrent of water to come and help it push it over the edge. And I think that's where we are as a society right now. we're in this swirling little pool because we're caught. And I think that we can use rites of passage and ceremonies, and we can use these forms, these, like we talked about the whirlpool as a form, we can use these forms to transform our society and help us achieve our path to the bottom down there. And so it just got me thinking about that when you were talking about, how that was kind of my setup between diversity and there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Fibonacci, right?
Yes, exactly. It's
I
so
love
true.
yeah, I love that. Your explanation is beautiful and really spot on, so I can't wait to read your book. I can't wait to read your book.
I think everybody can benefit from it because it's not about color or gender or orientation. It's about, hey, this is us. This is we're a process. And if we work together, we're going to get through it so much faster. And there's so many knuckleheads that think that they think that they are the source, but they're just the vehicle that the source is coming from. Yes. And if people can realize that, like, look, we're all the vehicle. And that particular form of government, that particular form of religion, these forms that we've had with us for so long, they were great, they worked, but now it's time for a new form. And that's what we're building. And that's what, like, you are doing with your helping people and understanding and moving forward on that. And so I guess
evolve.
we have to evolve
and
we
grow.
have to, right?
Yeah.
It blows my mind too. I spoke with Professor Emeritus from Duke University, Dr. Alan Buchanan. He wrote a book called The Evolution of Morality. And he speaks about, the guy is brilliant. I wish I could talk to him more. He went on to talk about some of the problems with morality, and he likened it to Darwinism. But then it got me thinking, like, if Darwin is wrong about the conscious mind, what else is Darwin wrong about? Like, probably everything. It's crazy to say, but probably everything. And that's okay.
I mean, I do think those explorers at the time that they were trying to come up with a theory or determination was based on limited resources, right? It's kind of like looking at the stars without a telescope. I think right now we're at a point where we have more bigger and better telescopes that are allowing us to see more farther in the distance. And so yeah, I 100% agree with that. So 100%.
I think it explains a lot of what's happening in our world. Because imagine if you grew up on these ideas. We talked about how if you were given something as a child, you take that into relationships you have. What if you were given this education and you've known it for 100 years? It's difficult to maintain the neuroplasticity as you move through later in life. And so once you become calcified, once it becomes hardened, you can't even see the forest through the trees. It's like, nope, this is what you're a big dummy. It's Darwinism, it's this. But we're changing. And it doesn't mean that those people have to be dumb or they have to be wrong. It's just that it's different. And I think people are so caught up in this black and white. Well, if I'm wrong, what else does that mean? What else am I wrong on? And so people don't want to give that up. Have you seen some of that in society and in some of the people you talk to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's a belief. It's the only way. It's the only thing that they know. The idea of wrong or right, and whatever is wrong or right is just based on what two people agree upon. It's like the currency system. The only reason why we have a currency system is because, two people said, okay, this is what we're going to exchange in order to create value. So, all of the United States says this piece of paper is worth something, and that's why it's a note. It has value behind it. So the idea of being wrong or right is just based on what two people are going to agree upon it to be right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's just what allows us to be the vehicle of change. Even I love what you're talking about with it is the evolution. It made me think like currency is even evoluting. Like we're looking at money and even seeing that kind of shifting with Bitcoin and things like that, of like it needing to evolve to a different source because its valuation is even going down because of other things that is out of our control. But yeah, like the evolution, what is right or wrong, it's just based on what people at that moment are going to say is right or wrong, but there is no right or wrong. It's just what allows us to kind of get by, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah, I agree. It's on the topic of evolution. There's a fascinating book. There's two books, and I'll go through them rather quickly. There's a book called "The Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind" by Julian Jaynes, and he was a scientist slash philosopher slash just all around brilliant person. I think he came out of Berkeley. I might be butchering that, but he wrote a book about left brain, right brain, and in this book, he says that we used, like, the Broca's area and Wernicke's area are the speech centers on the left hemisphere of the brain. However, he makes the argument that those centers used to be on the right side of the brain. And if you read the Homeric verses, if you read the great philosophers of the Greek and the Roman gods and these types of era poetry, a common theme you find in them is like, Ares came to me, or Mars came to me. The god of war spoke to me and told me I must go into the gates to fight Agamemnon. And, Aphrodite came to me and told me that this is the woman of my dreams and I need to go and, sweep her away from this evil man she's with. And so, and we today, we look at that as metaphor. We look at it like, oh, he was overcome with anger. But Julian Jaynes says, no, this was a voice they heard in their head. Each one of them heard Mars. They heard a voice talking to them. And when it was an angry voice, it was Mars. When it was a voice of love, it was Aphrodite. Maybe it was Zeus. And, it was the emotions made sound. And it's such a fascinating book. He goes on to back up what he says in doing work with today's schizophrenics, because schizophrenics hear voices. And he would talk to some of these schizophrenics and he says, I realize you hear a voice in your head that tells you to do evil things, but why do you do it? And the schizophrenic says, you don't understand. It's not just a voice in my head. It's like having someone this close to me yelling at my face saying, you're going to hurt this person now, or I am going to keep doing this. No matter where you run, no matter where you go, that voice is inside of your head and it will not stop yelling at you until you do it. I have to do it. And he draws this comparison. He goes, doesn't that sound a lot like, the Homeric verses where Achilles was thrust in to start killing people? And like, it breaks down the evolution of the bicameral mind. And then he talks about how it potentially migrates to the left hemisphere of the brain, where Ian McGilchrist comes in. He wrote a book called The Master and His Emissary. And he says that the left brain now has the speech centers. And so the right brain comes up with the concepts, but the left brain expresses them. And the left brain's gotten a little cocky and decides he doesn't need the right brain anymore. So he's decided to do away with the emotion and just become the analytical scalpel and talk about things and rationalize things. And so many people are left brain today that we've gotten away from what you were talking about earlier about the right hemisphere of the brain, seeing the beauty and the love and the concepts and the artwork in the world. And it just kind of makes sense is to see that the hardcore logical analytical world we live in today is so left-brained. Can you talk a little bit more about the left brain and right brain and what you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a way for us to comprehend it, but it's all energy in the brain. It's a muscle, and what that book is talking about is neuroplasticity. We can train and evolve our mind and create connections between the right and left brain and almost become friends with this analytical, logical minded, because it's not a bad aspect of us. There's no bad or good. It just is. So when we learn what it is and learn how to work with this thinking mind, analytical mind, which is a good aspect to be able to help us grow. But it serves its purpose to a point. Like the right side of the mind is more subconscious, more creative, more physical, more emotional. It's kind of like, why would you get in a car and try to drive with your thoughts? Being linear minded, like you're not going to drive with your left side of the brain. You're going to learn how to tap into your physical body so it can put your hands on the steering wheel and actually drive. and we have to create an open connection. I say we have to be like children. We have to go back to being like children who are so connected and so open, and just connected to all aspects of their mind, and kind of hold that place even in adulthood. We create this division between the two minds, and then we say we have a left and right brain. But we can train ourselves, I feel, to have an open brain where it's not really divided in left and right. You have your analytical mind or thinking mind or linear aspect of the mind when you need it during certain situations. But then you also have this more esoteric and feeling and creative aspect of the mind, and helping it all just become more solidified and working with each other. For me, meditation, hypnosis, and things like that can help with that openness. Because we don't know all the abilities. We really don't, and what we can do. We're still understanding where we came from, like, who we came from, how we were evolved. Going back to Darwinism and whatnot. But we definitely have the ability to change it. We can choose to be more open to different things, as opposed to linear and logical and a right or wrong way. We do have to train it. It's a muscle. It's all training. It's like lifting a weight, and then 5 pounds, and then lifting 10 pounds the next day. It's going to be hard. People are going to resist it. They're like, no, 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 my way is the only way. And but we have to kind of challenge ourselves and be um and be open to the possibility, the possibility of what could be there, of even looking at being like, oh, maybe Darwin didn't know everything. Maybe Einstein didn't know everything, and not be so held to those beliefs, those narrow ways of seeing life. That for me is letting go of left side dominant and stepping into right side, but it's allowing it both to be open and connected, creating those pathways of connection between both aspects of our mind. We don't want to shut off or reject or turn off a part of us. We just want to create a connected mind. Pliability, neuroplasticity. If you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Right? It's so true. It blows me away. Even in this conversation, like you know, like why would I describe it left brain, right brain? Like think about the speech I said. Like that's silly. Like it's whole brain. But I'm over here like left brain, right brain, like, and
Well,
it's
that's
so
how we understand things, right?
mm,
And that's a thing. So language is a way for us to understand things, and we have to find that common pattern in order to then carry us to different concepts and ideas, right? So sometimes, and that's the part about communication. It doesn't matter what I say; it matters how you interpret it. So even when you asked
mm,
me earlier about diversity versus inequality, like those words, I wanted to clarify what those even mean for me, the definition behind it, because we misconstrue like what words mean to us, because they mean different.
right.
They do. So right, left brain is kind of like a meeting ground for us to bring you out, to bring you out to
Yeah.
other. That's how most people view it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like I believe the world is made of language. And when we talk about how as a child we're given these things, imagine, I think it was Terrence McKenna who says, imagine what we do to children. Like imagine being a baby in a crib and this beautiful little hummingbird flies in and the kid just sees this crazy magical little beast flapping its wings and it's gorgeous. It's like making its little beautiful sounds. And the baby sees a miracle. And then I just go and ruin it and go, that's called a bird, Johnny. That's a bird. Like I've just
Yes,
taken away all the magic from it, right? It's
I
gone.
love
And
that. Yes.
and we do
It
that
is
all the
magical
time.
though.
Yeah. And like we label stuff to make it fit in this tiny little box so we can store it. But when we do that, we eliminate the magic and the beauty of life. Like it's not that you're Anne Marie. You are this incredible woman that has so much love. She's helping people. She's seeing things. She's conquering things. Like, we're more than labels. We're more than words. And the world is made of language. What do you think?
I Oh, I love that. I love that so much. The labeling definitely takes away from the beauty. I mean, when you think about a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, like, come on, on. That is just metamorphosis to the nth. I mean, come on, that is magic happening right there. Like when I had a conversation during med school when we were embryology. We were learning about embryology and how when a fetus is created, how this folds into this and this folds into this, and it creates the heart and it creates the ears and it creates the hands, and this folds and this folds and this folds. And I'm like, but how? Like, but how? Like, how does it know to fold? Like, I want to know, like how? Oh, well, this chemical is released and then it knows to fold. How does the chemical know how to release? Like, how? Like, I want to know the essence of the why. Honestly, for me, it's magical. Like, it's
Yeah.
just magical that life is created because medicine does not explain it. It does not explain it. And that's why we even have medical conditions like idiopathic conditions. There's a huge lump sum of medical conditions which they lumped under this disease called idiopathic. Have you ever heard of that?
Idiopathic.
Yeah, idiopathic disease is basically when I was in med school, because I was like, well, what caused this disease? I'm doing like pathology at the time, and they're like, well, we don't know. That's why we're calling it idiopathic. I'm like, that's the idiot's answer.
So funny.
like, like there has to be an answer as to why these diseases that seem to come out of nowhere are being created. And when I learned about emotions and when I learned about the subconscious mind, it answered everything. I'm like, no, this is not idiopathic. This is the pattern of us feeling sad, of our beliefs, of our depression, of our anxiety. Every idiopathic condition is tied to stress. Like, hello, can nobody see that pattern? Then why are we not focusing on just living more balanced, aligned, stress-free, understanding these emotions, how to let go of them, how to transform them like the butterfly, like the caterpillar turns into the butterfly. Yeah, it's just like magic is the answer for everything. It is that energy source that we just cannot explain, not even doctors, medicine. No, you ask a doctor about embryology. And if you can find an answer as to why that chemical is released, and they may say it's because, oh, well, this chemical release and causes this to release and this to release. But how do we, this pattern of life, of cycles, it's like the reason, like the moon circles around the earth. Women have, like, for example, their monthly cycles. Like, everything is a pattern and a cycle, as you say, and 100% aligned with that. Yes, and that cycle is life, and that's the magic, right? That's the magic for me that we take away with labels.
Yeah. It's in some ways, language is our greatest gift, but it's our greatest like suppression as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both, right? I agree. It's a meeting
it is.
ground, but then it's like, it's a way for us to be able to have these discussions and connect with people. And I was watching a documentary on The Fifth Kind. It's like a YouTube channel that talks about
I
like the
know it.
stuff way. You know it? Okay.
I do, of
Yeah,
course.
of course you do. And they have this documentary. It's like this 4 hour. It's really good, of course. And maybe you've seen it. And they were talking about the tablets that they found in these, like the ancient, like communication. And it all was a way to just data to allow it to make sure, like, we all are not losing these concepts, these metaphors, these understandings of life. And when we make that turn more into more than what it is, then that's when I think it's a disservice to us, right? When that becomes the only answer, kind of like idiopathic disease. That's not the end. That's not and that's what I also see with, when I have clients come into my office and they and they have been diagnosed with diseases before from a doctor, and I'm like, they become so tied to that then it becomes the issue. It's like, oh, well,
Yep.
it's my this and it's my that and it's my this, and it becomes their identity. And that's when that label becomes so tied to them that it's not serving them at all. I like to say it's kind of like, everybody can go through a remission. We can let go of these labels or these parts of us. We just, have to learn how to heal, like to let go of them. But it's not who you are. That's not you. These like diseases and conditions. It's just, it's everybody has emotions, for example.
Yeah. I love the metaphor of the cocoon. It just like a silkworm spins a web, it gets caught up in it. so do we spin our lives and get caught up in it, right? And then pretty soon all we can see is this cocoon around us. And but on taking it one more level further, I think that that's where we are as a world right now. Like we are cracking out of this cocoon as a butterfly. We've been a caterpillar forever, and all of a sudden we've gone into this deep sleep where we've just had labels and gone through emotions, and right now we're cracking open this. Hey, what's this internet thing? Hey, what is this? Like, we don't even realize our own form and how beautiful we are. We're like, I don't feel right. This is weird, you know? But we're going to emerge as this butterfly that is going to take flight and just surprise the very depressed among us, how beautiful they are, you know? Like, it blows my mind. It reminds me of one other concept of, I might mix up these two words, but it's, have you ever heard of the theory of recapitulation? Like phylogeny recreates phylogeny or something along those lines. It says this, it says that when we are born, we go through every stage of our evolution through the process. So when you're born, you're like a little swimmer, like you'd be a sperm, like a little swimmer sea creature. And then you meet an egg, and then those two cells unite. And then if you were to watch a sonogram and watch the baby develop as they're being born, what you would see is this egg begin to divide cells. And then it becomes like a little sea creature. It grows a little tail. And then it kind of looks like a little monkey. You know, I don't know if I don't really think we came from monkeys, but the theory of recapitulation says that we go through every stage of our human evolution in the womb when we're created. It's pretty fascinating to think about. And there's so many, if you look up the theory of recapitulation, it will tell you in detail and give you the ideas of who came up with this stuff. But it's fascinating. And it totally reminded me of what you said about our evolution and how we go in patterns. And it just fits the motif we were talking about, how we are a pattern. And if you look for the pattern, you can see it everywhere in yourselves and other people. And once you can identify that pattern, I think that's when you can really start helping yourself and other people. And that's why we went through those traumas of like, okay, I went through the pattern. Now it's my turn to help someone else through the pattern. Yeah. And it just shows like, hey, we're the same person. And you know, what you see in other people is only what you can see in yourself. So if you can only see, if everyone around you is an a-hole, everyone who's bad, guess what? You're bad. You know, exactly. You should find the beauty in that other person, because otherwise you're going to see. Speaking of beauty, look at this beautiful little girl.
I see.
I love you, lady. What's that? Yeah, go ahead. Drink some water, yeah? Yeah, she's I don't know what I would do without her. She's got her own podcast, this girl.
Ah, nice. Good for her.
Yeah. I had some other questions written down I wanted to ask you. Let me see. Are you doing okay on time?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I love this stuff, man. I can spend the whole day talking about it.
Me too, because I wrote down like a bunch of pages. So let's see what we got here. Oh. Have you noticed an uptick in issues of mental health since the outbreak of this pandemic, or since the economy kind of crashed?
Definitely more awareness. I think because people are able to be with themselves more, and you know, we're limited to distractions out, you know, because we can't go out, or you know, there's such a huge transformation even in the job market. Like I remember recently listening, and a lot of people are leaving, you know, their jobs because they want to find more balance. So now corporations are trying to, you know, increase all these benefits because they want to they don't have employees. And because people are becoming more aware, 100% feel that we're becoming more aware of this life, and that it is precious, and it is a gift, and it is an experience that you have the ability to manifest it or create it to what you want. So I'm definitely seeing a huge uptick in awareness and people wanting to help themselves because of that.
Yeah, I think so too. I really think that there's a lot of people that COVID has helped in understanding, like, or waking up, like, what am I doing every day? Every day I wake up and I leave my family and I go somewhere else, and then I drop my kid off at a place that I don't really know, and then I come home. Like, what am I doing? This is the exact opposite of what I should be doing, you know?
Yeah.
It makes me, it's just, I think we're headed towards a really good place. And it's because of the crisis that we're in. And because I think crises lead to good places, you know, they happen for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
it's a rebirth, and people are seeing also, I have to again commend, like, technology. It's if because of the technology that now even people are more open to, we're having greater reach, and we're able to create our lives that give us the freedom maybe to be in a beautiful island like Hawaii, and also, do a podcast and have reach, and do what feels good and passionate you feel good about, and that's the
Exactly.
awareness that people are coming to, I believe, having these platforms like this to
Right.
do this, to meet people no matter where they are. And, you know, there are more platforms like this that are becoming more evolved and better, even at how it does its service, just because there's more of a need now. And so I think that's helping us to create more balance in our life, the technology. There's always obviously like another side of it that we can look at where it's like some people will say, "Oh, it's not. It's good. It's isolating us and whatnot." I mean, that is for you to choose to not isolate yourself. Then to still have that balance that feels right for you to be able to engage with others, but also have maybe freedom of pursuing a job that allows you to be remote because you're seeing that now people are wanting to go specifically to jobs that are remote, and then corporations are being like, no, 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 come back to the office, and they're like, no, 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 no. I know I can do this here,
Right.
and I can do it just fine, so why?
Yeah, I hope that that's what people like. That's one thing I hope people take away from COVID. Like, instead of this being a pandemic, maybe this is what freedom looks like. Maybe this
Hmm.
is the beginning of what the future is going to be. And I think it's anybody's game. Technology is not good or bad. It's neutral. It could be the greatest liberator, or it could be the greatest suppressor. And it's just what
Yep.
we choose to do with it, right? Like it's there for everybody.
Hmm.
And in a way, I think things have always been so crazy. It's just now we know about it. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? And so
Yeah.
I think I really do. I think we're headed towards a world in which education takes new forms and it equalizes as much as it can the
Yeah.
world around us. I, I, I I'm curious. Like, information is everywhere. I'm curious what you think about this. Like, when I think about psychology and philosophy and hypnosis, like it seems that a large part of it has been used to dictate people's beliefs to them. Like you were saying, that some doctors will prescribe medicine to people and they become that reality. They become oh, I have diabetes, so that's why I'm heavy. I have schizophrenia, that's why I'm crazy. I have depression, that's why I'm not fun to be around. And they've taken these labels because on some level, medicine has decided that it's good to give people labels. And what is your take on that?
So there's it's like the placebo effect. So we have the placebo effect because belief is very powerful, the power of belief. And so if we believe that's what it is, that's what it is. And I mean, this is kind of a deep concept for people to kind of wrap their heads around, but you know, we the power of belief can eliminate a lot. Good. You spoke about books. I don't know if you heard Tom Campbell, the power, the big toe. He's a
I've
physicist. He the big toe, which is the theory of everything. The toe is theory of everything. TOE, and he talks about this in there. Very very good. I mean, he's a physicist, so he's able to kind of put the science, the logical mindedness to the metaphysical world in there, and how it's explained is just that we 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 culturally create our reality. Oh, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, you sound distant now. Speak. I didn't touch anything, but I can't hear you now. You sound distant. Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm
Oh, there
back.
it
I'm
goes.
back. I think it
There
was
it
me.
goes. There it goes.
Okay, I'm sorry about
So
that.
no, 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 no. So,
The big toe. He's a physicist.
yeah, it's a really good book. It's a dense book. It's a good read, but it's a very big read. And collectively as a culture, we are creating beliefs. So if you think about, my phone, the only reason why we have phones is because collectively as a society, we have created phones. So now this is a physical reality. So the same thing with the building that I'm living in. I did not manifest this, but society has manifested. So society creates this realm, this reality that we're in, right? It's like a dream world that we're in that is an illusion in a sense. It's a collective illusion. And we cannot change its collective illusions because we're kind of vibrating in this realm of this collective illusion. And medicine is the same way. So beliefs of diseases are the same way. Or it is a big placebo because it's so deeply ingrained in us as a society right now. And I mean, in my line of work, I've seen some miracles. So, I've seen some miracles that have happened. That is just like you have to experience that to actually believe the power of belief that the mind can do these things when we eliminate ourselves from these collective illusions of false reality that is not real. And that's why I said this is kind of a deep pill, and I don't know. It was hard for me to even swallow, and I still continue to learn how to swallow this by taking in, reading and meditating and learning and whatnot. But the we are experiencing a big placebo even around how we treat, how to live. Our building that we live in is almost like a big placebo because there's so many people that bought into this manifestation, this creation. You know what I mean? So everybody, like multiple, like if you think about 1,000 people believing in one thing, then like you're one person that doesn't want to believe in that. It's like you're fighting against the current because that current is going in this direction, right? So
Yeah.
and but for the people that really, really, really believe something, they can kind of step out of that current and not see that. I hope I'm explaining this clearly.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And like I didn't even think about that, but now that I listened to the way you put that, it seems like there is a large, like if you look at our society, it's been engineered that way. Like that is No Child Left Behind. That is every kid should learn the same thing in every school. That is the people on top wanting us to live in a world where we think the same. And I could understand why they would want to do that for national unity, or for
Some order, because it
yeah,
helps
some
us get to the
order.
next point. It helps.
Right.
There's nothing wrong or right about this, so it is an order. It's a way of being able to construct something to be able to understand it. Because it's kinda like the ant on the floor, looking up, seeing the dust particles in the air and thinking it's stars. Like, it's they have their own perception that they have to be able to grasp upon their experience, and we are the same way. Like, we have to grasp upon this experience we're having, no matter how real or not real it may seem. So it's kind of like the ant. Like we just have to understand what we're experiencing and be okay with not knowing things that we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. It just, it makes my mind explode. Like I think that there's so
Yeah,
many
yeah,
people trying to keep this illusion alive, and like nobody wants it anymore. It's like this
yeah.
illusion is dumb. I don't want it anymore. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trust me, I'm that hippie where I'm like, let's just go hold hands and sing and like kumbaya.
Right? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, like, why do we have to have these you know um animals are huge for me, and children and animals. I mean, that's like the main thing. It's like no matter what, I still see these people going through um trauma, and it's not easy. It's definitely not easy to watch and be okay with. But I'm telling you that when you gain an understanding of that this is not the only reality that we have, to kind of pull it back, that this is not the only reality that we have other realities that are beyond this physical existence, it really creates a sense of like I can live. I can just let go and trust that, that it's gonna be okay, and that I don't need to rush or push or force. I can just kind of let everything unvolve the way it needs to, and let someone have that experience and hope that they grow and learn from it. They eventually will grow and learn from it. Um, there's another really, really, really good book. I'm esoteric, I guess, spiritual,
I love it. I
and
love it.
and, and there's Michael Newton, who is he does life between lives hypnosis. That's what his model of approach is, life between lives. And his name is Michael Newton. He's well known for that. And a lot of people know about hypnosis being like past life regression work. I don't do that. I focus on present life. It has its place. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but for me, I like to focus on present life. Because there's a lot of work we can do in present life. And so Michael Newton really explored this life between lives exploration. He found that when he was taking people on these past life experiences, that they would pop into this like life between lives experience that was this spiritual and world, reality, experience, whatever. And man, that he's collected like tons of um, research reports from people that he did this on, and their answers are all like the same. It's like how do these people come up with the same answers of like soul contracts, or their soul groups, or their purpose, or just a lot of answers that just made complete sense when I did it. And I did it on myself, of course, and had that experience. And when you go through that, it's just like, wow, like there's so much to this non-physical world that is there. And that we took a kind of side turn, but but
It's awesome.
I highly encourage anybody to read that, if you're looking for discovery, want to just understand like who we are on a more essence, like on a more energy, like spirit self. Journey of Souls, or Journey of Souls is his book. And it's so good, and it just answers so many questions, and it's really great research. He's a pioneer in regards to the hypnotherapy field doing that.
What is a soul contract?
So we basically, um, in Life Between Lives, we have almost like these groups that we are evolving as a spirit with, and we uh, work with them. That's why we may meet people that feel like we've known them from a past life, or we feel just this instant connection with certain people, and it's because we have known them from the spirit realm, or that realm. And we meet people on a deep level, and we basically come to an agreement that they're going to teach us a lesson. And so, speaking about kind of what I brought up earlier, is that we say, we want to evolve as an energy. We want to grow, because the only way for us to be able to become wise is to experience. It's kind of like reading. You can read the menu at the restaurant, but until you actually take that bite of food, that is like the experience, right? And so the spirit's the same. It wants to experience. That's how it learns. That's how it becomes wise and grow. So we come into our life form in order to be able to do that. So we make agreements with people within our group, or maybe even outside of our group that we became friends with, to say like, this is what I want to learn. I want to learn how to control my emotions, or to have compassion, or to really experience love, or to have these lessons in life. So we have a contract with someone to help us learn those things. And so we even almost go through like a school to kind of give us these cues within our life, which are called synchronicities. And so the synchronicities are the cues to kind of, gravitate to this. That's why things will happen. You just feel like, I need to follow this, or I need to speak with this person, or I need to do this. And then that becomes this beautiful synchronicity that turns into like these amazing, like, who knows, life-changing events, or, becomes your partner, or whatever it is. And it's because, these are the cues that we were kind of prepared for before we came into this life to fill our contracts with one another. So it's an agreement that we have with different people or different spirits to be able to learn things in this experience.
I love that. I've never heard of that before, and I'm so much better because I heard that. Thank you. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It makes
Oh
so much
man,
sense.
you're gonna love his content. Michael Newton. So he's written three main books: The Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, and Light Between Lives. And it's just all about him doing this hypnosis, and then finding, and it's the reports from these people. So he kind of collects them all and just gives like the overall responses that they had, and it's profound.
It is. It sounds amazing to me. Yeah, I think, I've had some interesting experiences too on the concepts of time, and after you've had certain experiences, there's no going back. Once you leave the illusion, you can never have that illusion without skepticism again. And it's, in some ways, I think that maybe some people need to go through this. Maybe it's they need to go through the illusion first. Maybe they're at a different time than us, or because time is such an amazing concept. We're talking across time zones. If you live in a different country, you could be in a different day. If you know what, like I think the Israeli calendar and the Saudi Arabian calendar, like they're in different years. The
Yeah.
the Russian calendar is different. Like why is our time right? Maybe it is the year 900 right now. Who am I to say it's the year 2022? And you can
Yeah.
find evidence in that particular idea of how people are living in different parts. But yeah, I gotta reread. I gotta read that stuff. It sounds amazing to me. It sounds
Yeah, it's
super
fascinating.
amazing.
It's fascinating.
It really is. What else do I have on here? I have are you familiar with the different types of is there like a certain type of psychology you use when you talk to people, or is it something you've kind of invented on your own? Is it like a gestalt therapy, or what are you familiar with,
Oh,
and what do you like to do, and what do you like?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do gestalt. I do that type of therapy. I parts work, IFS, like those are kind of what I bring in, but I do that while they're in a trance state. While when they're in that relaxed, more trance state. I do regression, where we look at a past event or memory or experience in order to reframe how you experience it. Because most people will look at something and maybe they're charged about it. So, an example would be, let's say someone's terrified of swimming. And I live in Florida, so I have, oh, you're in Hawaii, so I love the beach. I live really close to the beach. And I'm not scared of water, and water's fine. I can swim in it. There can be sharks way below. I'm okay. I've done scuba diving, so I'm good. Um, but other people, they can be in like maybe waist deep water and they're terrified, terrified. So there's nothing, it doesn't have to do with the water. It has to do with the way that they view the water, the emotions. And so I help them kind of shift the perspective or create new pathways on viewing how to view the water, because what created that perspective is an event or memory. It's an event memory or a trauma that made them physically react in that way. And so I communicate with the subconscious mind in past memories to see what we need to do in order to come to a different view, a different way of viewing it. So then you're not perceiving it the same way. So that's regression work. I focus on present life regression. I don't do a lot of past life. I'm able to, I do it, but that's not my focus. I believe that we chose to come into this life, and we chose to come into this life to learn and grow. So there's a lot of growth that we can do in this present life. So I like to focus on that. What other? I mean, I am more of I'm a human, so and this is probably why some of my clients do come to me, is because I do have that coaching way of approaching a person, as opposed to authority figure. I want, I share metaphors or experiences for them to be able to understand. Because when someone comes to you for help, there's this almost immediate fear of judgment. and it's in a lot of reactions that we have. We fear judgment. When someone's coming to me and talking about things that are they have never spoken to anybody about before, and that's why they're coming, because it's something that's deep. So there is this letting go of judgment, knowing that I see you from a very different lenses, from a lenses of being able to heal myself and help myself and kind of see you as your energy and not what's on the outside. And see your truth. I see you as connected energy. I don't see you as a human in a sense, like this in the human form. I see all your beliefs or ideas which are limiting you as impressions from society that are not yours. You just took them on and made them yours, but they're not yours. And so there's no judgment. And so I approach my clients that way in a more like coaching manner of like, hey, we come together and help you. I'm not here to just for you to just vent to me. I'm gonna help give you a way of doing something, but it's up to you to want that. So there's like a meeting in the middle. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
different techniques that I use, and I also say that's also because of my past, that mindfulness, meditation. I'm big about that. Becoming the observer, like the more aware you are, the more you can choose to change. If you're aware of something, you have free will to be able to choose a different path, but you have to be aware of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like you become the voice in someone's head to become the guiding voice. And it's like, hey, I'm gonna be in your head for a little bit. I'm gonna show you how to do it, and then I'm gonna leave, and then you do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
beautiful though. I I I
Um,
I I find it I find it I find people that enjoy helping other people to be beautiful. And so I'm loving our conversation. It's
oh, that's why you're
what else?
beautiful too.
You're just saying that because it's true.
No, you're helping people, trust me. The ability to speak out, to just like, give to be vulnerable with yourself. You are human and you're letting people know that. And I think that is already healing to make sure people know that they're not alone. That whatever they're posting on their Facebook or on social media is like we are human. We all feel feelings and we all been through things, and you're not alone. And I think that's what we do when we share. And so you've done that.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that there's something like I've been reading a lot of linguistics lately. And, you know, I think there's a problem. While we talked about it earlier, while language is a great gift, it's also a problem, especially when we begin changing. I guess language is always evolving. However, I read there's something called the Sapir-Whorf theory, SAPIR, Sapir-Whorf theory. And what it says is that the more complicated a language, the better communicators people are. For example, um, some languages, like in German, they have this term called Schadenfreude. And Schadenfreude is one word that means the concept, I get happy when something bad happens to you. And you think like, oh, I've had that feeling before. I didn't know there was a word for it. In in the Japanese language, there's a certain word for the clouds slightly covering the moon, but light still shining out of it. I forgot what that word is called. But there's these one word for this giant concept. And and the better and more elegant you are, the better command you have for us of the English language, the better you are able to communicate. And you had spoke earlier about how crucial it is to define terms, because I could say something and it means something totally different to me than to you. And what if I was here in Hawaii and I was speaking to someone in India? They may, or I'll give you a better example. I was at a meeting with at my child's school, and we were having a parent group meeting with some counselors and some teachers. And one of the counselors asked, "Can someone please tell me what they want for their children?" And a beautiful young woman who was Japanese got up and said, "I want my child to be obedient." And I'm thinking, that's the last thing I want for my kid. I don't want, my idea of obedience is someone do this now. But that was not, she didn't want her kid to be that. She wanted her kid to be respectful and kind and be a good person. However,
Community, right?
look, yeah,
Community,
yeah,
because the Asian culture is all about, like, community, like, serving the community.
yeah. And so it's, like a light went off in my head, like, oh wow, it's so easy to get caught up in our language, especially when we speak a same language, but it might mean something different. So, you know, I think that in the future, as I'm going off on this tangent, like, isn't it interesting that the Tower of Babel was about all these people that spoke a language and then they were dispersed all over the world? Is that metaphor telling us that we need to be able to all communicate effectively if we want to build something great? Or is that saying, hey, when you guys all get together, you're a problem. We got to move you all around here. I guess it could be said either way, but I really think that the future of linguistics is imperative for us to build the world we want to live in. We need to be able to better understand how to communicate effectively. So I can see what you're feeling. And this gets me back to what we were talking about masks. And, you know, like, I am really enjoying this conversation, and I can see the love in your eyes, and I can see you smile, and I know you're having fun and I'm having fun, but there's something to be said about if we were sitting next to each other. And that something is called the felt presence of the other. When you sit with somebody that you're trying to help, you could probably do it on the phone, but it would be less effective because you're not there with them. And when we're together, there's that felt presence of the other. And I feel like that is such an important part of linguistics because so much communication comes from more than words. I think
Mhm.
that's a song, but there's more, there's
More
something
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And I think this helps. I think it's nice to open up the world to have conversations across the world, but I hope we don't lose this felt presence of the other. And I guess I'm a little concerned with that, with so much distance learning and so much work from home. While there's such benefits, I'm afraid of losing the felt presence of the other. What can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I guess that's why I would not leave my live aspect of my practice because I like having that. But then again, there's like the ability to have a session with someone in the UK. It's awesome, that
Yeah.
maybe listened to my podcast or met me through some other means and just really aligns with how I, because it's building that trust, and they're like, I really want to work with you, and being able to work with them across the U.S. is fantastic. But also, yes, I do agree that there are more subconscious cues that you can pick up upon when you're sitting right next to each other. Like even the direction of their feet, you can tell when someone's ready to step out. They're like, okay, done with this conversation. Feet are turned that way. I want to go that way. Like if I can't see your feet, which I can't right now, then but you're turned toward, you're at the screen. You're facing towards me. So it's like those subconscious cues can be gained more in person. I 100% agree. And I mean, I don't think we're going to 100% lose that. So I'm not as worried. Like, you know, there are opportunities. I don't know how it is. And actually, I was in Hawaii. I was in the Big Island. It wasn't too bad. That was in September. In regards to like, still having options for us to engage, and where I am in South Florida, we have those options. So I'm not fearful that that's going to go away. And I feel comfortable and safe with being able to engage, in those environments with who I'm engaging with. So I'm not concerned that it's going to go away. I just think this is like the cherry on the top. It's kind of like another additive that's there for us to be able to engage with people. So I'm not too concerned, but maybe it's just my optimistic side.
Let me ask you this: if Dr. Anne Marie could build the world and have a huge impact, if you could build the world 20 years from now, what are some things that would be in that world that aren't in that world today?
What would be in that world? Oh boy, that's a good question. What would 20 years from now, what would be in that world?
What are some changes you would like to see?
So, I mean, things that I cannot change now. I do believe um, that there is an order, and that it needs to start with the top to help trickle down. So I do believe that there needs to be big changes and influence in our government, in our corporations. And I do believe that there are corporations now that are becoming more mindful in a sense, ethically conscious. And I think that's where we would need to start, at least, to have representation that is not maybe focused on monetary gains or abundancies in that nature, because we're even culturally stigmatized to focus so much on financial gain. We think that is power. We think that is purpose. That financial wealth is kind of the end game, and there's a lot of people within corporations and government that are doing that. So I think that needs to change for us to see that's not, and I've worked with people that are very wealthy, and they're not happy. Like, and it's like, you got all the
I
money in the
know.
world, and it's like, so we're here. We all want the same thing. We all want to feel peace. We all want to feel happy. We all want to feel balanced. And I think if more people that are in control at the higher level can be able to become aware of that and kind of grow their own awareness and empathy, then I think maybe that will trickle down. So I would love for a lot of transformations to occur, but it have to start from the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, here in Hawaii, we have a saying that says the fish rots from the head down. If you can ask any fisherman,
They
it
love
seems
fish in
true.
there.
Fish and flowers,
Yeah.
we got them all over
Oh
here.
man. Yeah, I mean Hawaii is gorgeous. The culture is just I love it. I loved it. The culture
It's
and
beautiful.
the culture there is just so strong,
It'll change you. If you come and live here,
Yeah,
it'll totally change you.
I
There's no
bet.
billboards over here. There's no advertising. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that until, in Southern California, I grew up, and a lot of my friends, I didn't realize how much I was influenced by the environment. But so many of me and my friends, we were pretty hard chargers, and we would just booze it up all the time. And so much of my conversations were about, what I'm doing right now? I got a new navigator. I got a boat. Hey, guess what? Guess where I live? You know who I'm talking to right now? Like, so much of my conversations, like, that was the conversation. And it was like just this constant, like, you know what I'm doing? Oh yeah, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. And like, that was the whole conversation. And as I started, and I moved to Hawaii in 06, and I was like that for a long time. And then one day I got a call from my friend, and the conversation was like, it was more him telling me these things he was doing. And I'm like, this guy is pretty arrogant. And I went, oh, that's me. This is my conversation I always have. Oh, me, I'm the arrogant one. I am such an arrogant chump. No wonder people think like that. I am that, but it took being deconditioned over here. And I started thinking about, like, I wonder why I'm like that. And then when I went home, like, I rented a car, and you're just bombarded with, like, here's the perfect family. You should drink this alcohol. Look at this pretty girl. Look at this guy. Look at this car. Look at these clothes. It's everywhere. It's just like bombarding you. How can you not feel inadequate when you're constantly bombarded by things that appear to be better? And
Yeah.
it's this culture of corruption. It's this idea that money has seeped into anything and corrupted it, which brings me to an interesting question about, you said that perhaps one of the best ways to change things is to start at the top. And I think it's a similar force in corporations, in government, and in people. And that is this idea of corruption. People, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I've kind of nailed it down to, like, it's the corruption. People are probably pretty good, and maybe they think that they are providing the greater good for people. But do you think, as a doctor and as a therapist, you have helped people become uncorrupted, and you've used different techniques to do that? Do you think that we could somehow use some of those techniques to change the society or the governments we live in?
Right now?
Well, just on a small scale. Like, maybe we could start with, like, what are some of the techniques you use to help people become uncorrupted? And then we could talk about if we could apply those
Yeah.
to a bigger form.
so someone has to want it, right? And that's the biggest change is if they don't want it, then they're not gonna do it. And so if they want to want it, then they'll do it. Um, and that's just part of part of their experience that they need to have. So like when I have people come to me, it's they're not really fully aware of even what they want yet, but in the end it's always peace and happiness. And so it's like balance, peace, happiness, time with family because it creates peace and happiness, it creates this purpose, value within their life. And when people can kind of become aware of their why behind something, then it may be able to create change. So like people that are in large corporations or maybe heads of governments or whatever it may be, if they go deep into the why, okay, well, like had a client, they're like, I want my company to be evaluated at, 50 billion or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, what will come of that? I'll be able to buy a jet and fly around the world. And I was like, okay, well, what will come of that? I'll be able to have free time and be with my wife and be with my kids and just travel around the world in my jet. And I was like, okay, well, what will come of that? Happiness, peace, and then it's like, well, you don't need to have this much in the bank in order to do that, do you? You're chasing your why, but it's not really, it's kind of like you're going in this huge circle loop of like, you think that that's what's going to get you that, but it's not, right? More money, more problems, right? Because the bigger his company got, the more he was stressed and just having to worry about this process or this person or this deal. And it was just more, but obviously this person wanted simplicity. They wanted to be happy. And I would say if we can just identify our why behind what we're doing, the real why, not the superficial why. Oh, well, I want to have a lot of money. Well, why do you want to have a lot of money? Because people will accept me now, and I can wear nice clothes and do this. Like, well, why do you want that? Because I just want to be loved. Like if you
Right.
really
So
start to go
true.
deeper, it's always about like it always goes to just wanting to be, loved, accepted, peace, balance. It always goes back to that. And the stigma that we create socially is that money is our way to get that. But that's the belief that will get us that, but it doesn't really get us that. So I think the why, just really digging into the why we're doing things. And I guarantee we'll always go back to that. If
Yeah.
people actually sat with themselves and really uncovered that, like I would love to sit with someone and be able, well, what will come of that? What will come of that? And then it will stump them, and people that don't want to listen though will not listen. They're just not. It's just and that's fine. That's just, you gotta right now, and we have to meet people where they're at in order to create change. I can't create change with force. I have to kind of allow that change to occur by having them see the change, not me to see it for them. That makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. It's it's fascinating to have conversations with people you care about, and then like, you're trying to talk to them, and then like you just touch a nerve and they get super upset, and you're like, oh, okay, I see where we're going. I talked to some people at my work, and there's this older guy and a younger guy, and I feel bad for the older guy. Like he went down a wrong path, and his life is very difficult right now, and he's not ready to change. But there's a young guy that looks up to him, and I try to talk to that guy, and I try to explain to him, sometimes metaphorically, sometimes straight
Yeah.
to him, like, do you realize, like, this is your mentor, right? Yeah. Okay. That's your mentor. You know what I mean? Like, look what's happening in his life. Do you think that what's happening in his life are a direct reflection of his decisions? Do you think that maybe you're making some of those decisions? And if you are, is it possible that you could end up like that guy? It's, yeah, I'm out of here. And they walk away, and it's like, oh, they're not ready to hear it, and it,
No.
it makes me
Yeah.
sad because I don't want that to happen to them. But
Of course.
it's necessary. These conversations are something I've been on the opposite side of that and walked away and been mad and yelled,
Me
but
too.
I've gone back to it. Yeah, right. You go
I
back to it and
mean,
you're like,
we
oh,
all
they're trying to
have.
help me.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Trust me. I had it the other day with my boyfriend, and I mean, it's part of being human, part of the growth, and just like learning how to accept where people are at. I mean, it's the hardest thing, especially when I will talk to parents that call me for their kids that are maybe using drugs, and of course you want your child to change, but the thing is they need to want it. It's my mother is in recovery. Well, my mother's in recovery, so she's been sober, but when, she was using, it was like I wanted so badly for her to change that I was doing the changing. I would search programs. I would, try to hold her hand and do the work for her. And, there came a day where it just was like, I gotta lift my hands, wash them, and just be like, I can't live your life. You have to want it for yourself. And that was the day she said, I'm done. It's like she needs to take empowerment to recognize that she was worthy of that. And it was not easy, and it's never easy. So whenever I talk to someone that's trying to, that's calling for someone else, I don't see them unless I talk to them, because I need to make sure that they want it. Because honestly, I don't want to waste your money. Hey, you're gonna waste your money if you come to me. They need to want it. Like, they may be just doing it just to shut you up, you know. And that's the reality of it. Is just we have to allow people to live their experience. The only thing you can control is yourself. So be able to live I would say live by example first. I that is the biggest influence. If you can live the life that you would want them to live, then you're influencing them far more beyond than, do as I say, not as I do, right? Like, there's so many people that will that tell people how to live life, but are they living life that way? And that's the biggest influence subconsciously to just demonstrate that, uh, you know, eh, demonstrate peace, demonstrate love, demonstrate compassion, demonstrate forgiveness, demonstrate all of that. And then, they're going to want a piece of that because you're living in this place of bliss all the time. You're living in this place of
Yeah.
bliss where you're just like, ooh, life's good.
It's true. I often argue, like, especially with the situation we're in now. I realize that I don't have all the facts, and I'm given just little scraps of information about what's happening. But there are people in positions of authority who feel it necessary, and maybe rightfully so, I'm not sure, but to present the public with the greater good. Like, yes, this is bad, but it's the best thing for everybody. Like, I have such a difficult time with that argument. And maybe it's because I'm not in a position to see all the numbers or something like that. But I, I don't I don't believe that anybody should have the right to make the greater good argument. And I go back and forth sometimes, but I just think it's wrong for me to decide for other people because I don't know what they're going through. And people didn't know what was right for me when I was going through things. So maybe that's why I think that. What is your take on the greater good argument and how to maybe look at it?
Yeah. Honestly, I too don't know enough to be able to say, like, hey, this is right for the greater good. I just know that I I feel I know what's best for me,
Yeah.
and because I'm the only one that's in my shoes. And so I
Yeah.
can't say what and that's the same thing as a parent, right? We can't know exactly what that maybe child needs. We got to kind of explore who they are and what is it that they like and enjoy in order to be able to kind of help them find themselves. We don't tell them who they are, so the idea of greater good is definitely a hard pill for me to swallow. I feel like
Yeah.
there's one size fits all. I do believe like there is common modalities in regards to how to live life that are spot on.
Right.
So for
Nice.
example, so like love and the common concepts, going back to love, forgiveness, compassion, and all those things. Those are the only things that I think are good for the greater good.
Nice. You know what? Can you excuse me for 1 second right here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll
Absolutely.
be right back. I think my daughter needs me real fast. What is that?
Yeah. Have a good one.
What happened? It's okay. No, I would never be mad at you. I was never be mad at you. Never be mad at you. You okay? What happened? You okay now? What happened? I didn't even hear it. I heard the doorbell. I'm like, oh, who's at my door? Are you okay? You sure? Okay, I gotta go kill get these cats. They're right outside? Okay, come here, one second. Look at me. Are you okay? You sure? You want to hit the cats? I'll be right back, okay? You sure you're okay? Okay. Here. Get in here, you monkeys. Go. Okay. All right. What happened, lady? What happened? Is this here? What happened? Bella? Come on. No one on that thing is more important than you. No one. Not at all. Nobody. You and your mom are the most important people in the world to me. And that's all that matters. And I'm never mad at anything you do. I'm never mad at you. I'd be mad at things you did. But there's nothing more important than you and your mom. I was just talking to some people about some stuff, but that's all. Want to eat some lunch? Okay. What are you going to make for me? Broccoli. Broccoli.